to Where There's a Will, There's a Way. And remember, what we are doing is creating the context for everybody in your organization to live their ideal life. And we have an expert today, an expert in how to help companies do exactly that. So our expert is Jim Coyle from Kalamazoo, Michigan, an expert EOS implementer, one of my very good friends and great inspiration for lots of businesses. So welcome, Jim.
Well, thanks, Will. That's a hell of an introduction. I appreciate that.
So tell us, this whole idea of EOS Life, doing what you love doing with people you love, making a great contribution, getting compensated appropriately, and then having plenty of time left over for your other passions and your family. How did that? Tell us about how you experienced the transition to this EOS life.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so it's funny. So the Don Tinney came up with the concepts of the EOS life, and I was in the community before Don. I like to think of myself as implementer number 16, actually. There was a couple other people that had come through, but if you look at all the people who lasted, there's 16. I'm the 16th person. And so the concept came about a ways into my working within the community, Will. And but when it was codified by Don, it was like, oh, it was kind of one of those like, well, yeah, right. That's it. But it was so powerful. And so to be honest, in my beginning of my journey, I didn't realize what I was striving for. But then when Don codified it, I was like, yeah, that's it. That's the brass ring that I've been looking for. And so my journey was not an easy one. I like to say I have a whole bunch of the EOS records. It's just none of them they put on the board, Will, because they're the records in the wrong direction. Probably most 90s without a focus day. And I really struggled. And because of that, I think it's one of the reasons I became a coach within the community is because I didn't want people to struggle the same level I did. Maybe I could help them to have less of that. And so, but as I got through that struggle, I started to see that, wow, I was really bringing some beauty into the world, making a big impact. Impact is a term I used years before. Making a big difference, big impact. Those are words that are interchangeable. And I really started to see my impact and really started hearing stories from my clients and loving this more and more and more. And then that really took off. And for me, if there wasn't for the impact, the other things are super important for me and my family, but I would not be fulfilled if I wasn't making that impact. And so that's the cornerstone for me in my life. But finally, after really a longer time than most implementers, I got to that other side where I really started living the EOS life. In the beginning, honestly, Will, it's more of a promise that you can get here than it is anything that you can feel or be tangible about. And it's true for our clients as well, actually, in my opinion. We tell them about this, and this is where they're going and where EOS will take them, but it's just a promise in the beginning. One of my clients said one of the reasons they wanted to work with me is that they heard I took off a month a year, and they couldn't get their arms around how anybody could do that. And in total, I take off about 11 weeks, but I do one whole month together. And they said that was one of the reasons they worked with me because they wanted that in their EOS life. And so it's good I love the fact that I'm now inspiring others to go after it.
Right. So this whole notion of being able to take a month off, the way that you can do that is when you have people you trust and who have demonstrated that they can take responsibility for running the business, right?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It took a while. Some of it is, to be honest, especially for many of our entrepreneurs, it's actually a lot of work they have to do on themselves. Because they probably do have a good team. And if they've set up the right culture, and I want to speak to that, but if they set up the right culture, then it's very possible. You just have to get people to train them, make sure they know what needs to be taken care of. And as an implementer, we don't have a huge team, but I needed to make sure my team understood if a client calls, what happens, who takes care of it, if it's an urgent issue, then yes, maybe I do get contacted, but how do we do that? And there was a whole system that we had to set up. And so it took a little bit of work, but well worth it for sure.
Yeah.
My kids will have memories for years because of that. But one of the things that I speak about when I talk about culture is I think that a lot of times we as entrepreneurs set up a culture that we are the center of the universe that is the business. And that ultimately can cause a lot of problems for the business because everything then has to go through you because that's what you designed. I don't think that entrepreneurs realize they designed it that way. And then they whine about it, right? You've heard people whine about it. So this isn't me punking any entrepreneurs. They're actually one of my favorite types of people in the world. But I do see that they cause their own pain. And so I think it's more of that than anything else, Will.
Well, what I've experienced is that when entrepreneurs, founders, owners begin to delegate to people, that this reveals, this brings about, transforms people who were already good, but were never given the opportunity to show how good they were.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Oh, so much sense. Yeah. And I think that that's absolutely true. And I also think it actually, the flip of that then is it does flush out the people who really never did have it, but they were kind of putting up with them, and so there's the flip of that. But you're completely right. I think people are finally able to shine, and it shines the light on those that really shouldn't have been there in the first place, or don't have the core values, or don't GWC the seat. And so I think it does both things, which I love about EOS. We jokingly say it shines the light on everything, and so all the bugs and the mold and everything has to scurry.
Right. Well, an interesting thing that I'm experiencing, I mean, here I am 5 years in, and I realize that my life was one of doing it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, leaving my family. I was the firstborn. Going to college. My parents weren't in the space where they were going to take me around and show me the 4 or 5 different colleges that I could go to. It was me going. And so there was this whole sense of my entrepreneurial world was one that I controlled.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a belief that if I didn't do it, it wasn't going to happen.
Right.
What I'm discovering, and the primary place I'm discovering it is in the EOS community, especially here in Southern California, where we have this wonderful MCE and 20 of us getting together. And I realize that while I might have a lot of things that I'm thinking about, if I just wait a moment, somebody else is going to pick it up and start talking about it. And likewise, when somebody is doing something and they're doing it well, I don't have to feel like I have to jump in and help them do it better. It's really letting them do it. And I had a great idea that I wanted to think about, and I realized that one of the other EOSIs is really good at organizing that kind of idea. And so I asked him, "Do you really love doing that?" And he said, I thrive on it. And so I could share my idea and know that it was going to come to be because he was really going to pick it up. So there's something about learning the difference between hard work and effective work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or what I used to say, hard work and smart work. Working harder was definitely something I was taught. I don't think I was taught working smarter. And so I got working hard down. I think that I got a work ethic that is very strong, but I needed to find my way to working smarter for sure.
I have one of my clients in one of our podcasts talked specifically about how his father had taught him it's always hard work. If you're not working 50, 60, 70 hours a week, you're not going to succeed. And when this fellow learned that he didn't have to do all the things himself, that he could delegate to people, he could find people who GWC'd, got it, wanted to do it, and had the capacity for it, and then he could delegate that to them, then his work hours went below 40 a week. and the business is thriving.
Yeah. Oh, completely. It's funny, Will, in the beginning, I was so uncomfortable with taking vacations that I told nobody I was going on vacation. And I just always got back to people so they would never know. And it was a badge of honor. It was like, my busy badge, right? Like, well, look at me, I'm getting stuff done. And then I got into the EOS community and I was like, oh my God, like, this is terrible. Like, I have to rewire, and that was from my dad as well. And beautiful man, but he definitely just pushed me into believing that my self-worth and really the love I'd get from the world was if I just worked hard.
Yeah, 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 yeah. And just that whole notion of getting to the place where we're doing the things that we love doing, which are Dan Sullivan tells us is our unique ability. And when I can focus on that and delegate everything else to people that I can trust, that to me is so fulfilling.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, no, completely. And then we're bringing more beauty into the world. I mean, we're bringing the gifts we're supposed to be bringing into the world, not all the other stuff.
Right.
So.
Right. All right. So now talk about your life right now as an expert means you've done at least 500 sessions, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So what's that like now?
Well, not any less busy. I would say that I was having a conversation with another one of our great implementers, Mike Coates, today. And I was saying, I realized that my approach to life is work hard, play hard. And so I have 11 and a half weeks off a year, which means I jam a lot into the other weeks. And which is great. And it does suit me. I'm finding I need a little more breathing room sometimes. But I'm about 700 sessions in, and having that lifestyle to be able to take the time off, having the money to be able to do the things, have the vacations and things, and also being able to go after those other passions. And right now I have a 6 and 8 year old, Will, and they are my biggest passion, them and my wife. And so it's just been great. I never vacationed with my dad. I realized when I got older that there was never once I went on a vacation with my dad. We would go on a conference with him, but he was always working, and so, but we never vacationed. And I decided my kids were not going to have that. My kids were going to see what a relaxed dad looked like. And so that has been a big push for us. And so we take a month off and do a family vacation. And that month has been really transformative for the family because we really can connect at a whole nother level and really become a connection. Don't get me wrong, there's still issues, and the 6 and 8 year old will still fight, and there's still problems going to bed and all those other kinds of fun things, but everything's just more relaxed. There's just less no. And it's just a lot more yeses and a lot more kind of fun, which I think that sometimes we miss with kids. I mean, it's just very much got to get stuff done. You got your homework, you got, baseball and, gymnastics for my kids. And, it just feels like there's always something. And so I really love that I get to hang out and just have, let's be time. We're just being. And so that's been wonderful. I think that my kids were asking one of their friends what month they take off every year. And their friends are like, what do you mean? And they're like, well, doesn't everybody do this? I'm like, well, not everybody necessarily does this, guys. So, but it's good. I'll say that that's been the one thing that with the EOS Life that I am most proud of being able to create and, happy to be a part of is that real connection with the kids at that level.
So talk to me about some of your clients who are taking this EOS Life seriously, and talk to me about them. Yeah, and so it feels like cheating, but the crescendo story in the EOS Life, it ends with my client's story, and so Eric, a great visionary, and so I want to tell a little bit of the story, a little backstory, I guess. But then you can read his part in the book right at the end. So it's kind of the ending story. But he
he was working 60, 70, 80 hours. And in the book, he doesn't even say that, but I know he was working at those hours. And he was the center, right? Remember I told you that the entrepreneurs, many times they create the center, and it's like, oh, you're needed, but you're really needed, and you can't grow at that. And so we brought EOS in, and he always says, he tells his friends, if you want to, really take your company someplace and really create a life that you want to create and really that EOS ideal life, you got to work with Jim. But don't do it if you're, what's he call? A sissy is actually what he calls him. He goes, Jim will push you. And so I pushed hard on, he said what he wanted, but then he wasn't doing the things to get there. And so if you tell me what you want, I'm going to push back if I don't think you're doing what needs to get there. And so we pushed hard, and his team was great. He kept creating a better and better and better team. And now he has this amazing team, and he's there for level 10s, probably 1 or 2 hours more a week. He's there for quarterlies and annuals, but that's about all he works. He takes off an amazing amount of time. He's a pilot. He has 2 to 3 planes, I think. And so he really spends a lot of his time there, and he created an amazing company. And it was just, he just needed to dig in and do the work and make the hard decisions. There were just people that weren't going to get him there, Will. And it was hard because some of them were friends and people who've been around for a while. And he just kept pushing and pushing to really get people there, and even develop the people that were there too. So, I mean, he didn't do this in such a way where like, next kind of thing. This was a develop them. If they can't get there, then, set them free. So he did some amazing work. I'm actually, it feels weird saying this about another adult of my age, but I'm proud of what he created for himself. Yeah.
So, all right. So how are these companies extending this throughout the whole organization?
Yeah, good question. So I just had this conversation with another company, and they were saying that they were struggling with their culture. They said, we're having cultural problems, which is a huge word for nothing and everything at the same time, because no one really knows what it means. And so I said, well, have you really pushed the EOS Life down? And I talked a bit about this, Will. And I said,
right.
And they said, well, what do you mean? And I said, so this isn't just for you. This isn't just for the owners, because this was a partner group. So there's 3 owners and 2 or 3 non-owners. And they said, oh, light bulb moment, right? And I always think of the EOS light bulb on top of their heads. And so, and so now they've started to do that work. And I can't say that they're at the end of that by any stretch, but they're realizing that they want all of their people to live this, and they're being intentional. I think EOS can be super powerful for anybody and can bring the EOS life. But when you get intentional about it and really start to think, how do I do this for my team? Man, you can get really good. Just get overt about it and just make it happen. This isn't something that just, happens. I think that you got to make it happen. And I've been impressed by some of my teams really making that intentional decision.
What are some of the things that you've seen companies do to after they've made that intentional decision, which is, for me, it is often reflected in the 10-year target, right? By the 10 years from now, we're going to have this huge amount of revenue, and sometimes the light bulb goes off, and they say, and 100% of the people in this company will be either living the EOS life or have a path toward it. All right, so when they do that, my question is, having that intention, what are things they are doing that you're seeing to create that context?
Yeah, the PDP is what one of my clients calls it the other day. I said, oh, PDP, and I thought I realized what they meant. A personal development plan is actually what I'm like. So when you get intentional about each individual, is when I see it really come alive. And once again, no one has this, perfected or anything. So I'm not telling you that all my clients have this down, but the personal development plan per person, where you literally asking the questions, do you have the time to be able to live your other passions? Well, I don't feel like it. I have an accounting firm I work with, and so some of them are talking about, well, during tax season. Well, that may be a TS moment, tough, because that's,
Right.
you got to make hay when the sun shines. But, during these other times, or do you have the ability to do that? Do you feel like you're on the team where you really love your team, and really going through that and really asking those questions? I think the questions in there are perfect for a personal development plan.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that can really help teams to get intentional, like I said before.
Mm-hmm. I came away this morning from a group that was talking about, now they're not an EOS company that I know of, but they were talking about how they have implemented this kind of thing in their company, and what they said was, number one, we want our supervisors, our managers, to listen, to really be able to listen to the people in their group, and then to empathize with them, to appreciate, feel, see what's actually going on with those folks. And I'm thinking this is like a quarterly conversation, and then to be prepared to advocate for that person, and maybe it's even advocating in the conversation with them, like you were doing with that visionary. This is what you said you would do, so what's keeping you from? And then to learn how to develop that person, have that PDF, that to me is really important. And then to self-reflect. I mean, those things will help not drive EOS through the organization, but will help it to just blossom up in the organization. Because like you were talking about previously about the leadership that's there, ready to receive the delegated tasks for things that they love doing, their unique ability. When that visionary actually shares that, then you discover this great pool of talent and resource in the leadership team. I'm wondering if that same thing happens in the depths of the organization when managers and supervisors begin to take those people seriously, not just about what they bring to the organization, but who they are. So they're really looking at the entire human being, bringing everything they have to the organization.
Yeah. And I think when people bring their full self to a company is when you get the full value from the individual. And so I think that that's something that's missed. And I think there was a beautiful, and to be honest, I think it was Panera. If you got Paneras out your way, Will. I think it was a Panera sign, and it was literally their hiring brand. And their hiring brand says, "Bring your full self to work." And I was like, "Oh, God, how beautiful that is, right?" And it made me want to work for Panera. Luckily, I love what I do. But
right.
The concept of that is really powerful, and I think Gino talks about let your freak flag fly. That kind of idea. And I think that when we are the same person in all aspects of our lives, when we're just genuinely Jim and genuinely Will, that's when we can really bring real value and love, to the world. And I think that when we're putting energy into creating other personas, it doesn't work. And I do think the EOS Life helps with that, and I took it maybe a little too, maybe a little deeper. But I do think the EOS Life helps because, what are their passions? You may find out some crazy things they're passionate about, or some things that they're not getting the time to spend with people that, you wouldn't even have known. And when you start to ask those questions and listen well, like you said, that's when you can really bring these individuals' full selves to work.
Mm-hmm. Right. So now you mentioned that your passions were your 6 and 8 year old kids, right? What else do you do in your life that is fun for you?
And I will say I do love what I do at work. And the coaching other EOS implementers actually is probably more of a passion than a job. I don't mean that rudely to any of my mentees who hear this, but I mean it's more of a passion for sure. I love also travel. So my wife and I travel. I definitely travel with my kids. We're doing on our month trip that we're taking this year. We're going out west, and we're getting an RV and traveling around and seeing the bunch of the national parks.
Nice.
Yeah, yeah. So pray for me because I'm driving a really big RV.
Well, drop through Laguna Beach, and we'll take you all to dinner.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know. We're flying into Salt Lake City. I don't know if it's going to go that far of a loop. But
well, you're in the West, so
yeah, right. It's just around the corner.
That's right.
They're big states out there, Will.
That's right. It's huge. That's huge. So tell me, how excited are you about the notion that we're as implementers, we are going to implement the EOS and the EOS Life in 100,000 companies by 2030.
Mm-hmm.
And if we just used the number 50 for the average number of employees,
Right.
that's 5 million people who will be impacted by our joint implementation of EOS.
And actually, it's funny. I believe that there's a power of 10 greater than that, Will. And here's my 2 cents. Because
okay.
Every company, I think of a 100-person company. I honestly think from the numbers that we ran, and I did a little research years ago on this, it affects around 10,000 people. But let's lower it to a power of 10. That's a power of 100 over. Let's lower it to a power of 10 because maybe my number is a little pie in the sky, but I don't think so. But let's just say 50 people. I honestly think that there's a power of 10 greater than that. And so the amount of beauty and love that we're going to be pouring into this planet at the 100,000 is crazy. And to be honest, I don't see that as the stopping point. People are talking about that. Oh my God, no. I mean, 100,000 companies. I mean, there's 100,000 companies in Michigan that do this, right? And so, I just asked this question actually to Mark. I said, so what's our target market? So if you really look at just our target market, there's 6.1 million companies in our target market across the globe. And I'm like, oh my gosh, so 100,000 is like drop. So the power is amazing.
And what that was you were there when the goal was 10,000.
Oh yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
And that was like 10 years.
Yeah. Yep.
And now we have 100,000 in 10 years.
Yep.
So I don't think anybody's asked this question yet, but what is it going to be in 2030 that we expect to do by 2040?
And the thing is that I actually think Mark's number, I don't know if you've heard Mark's number. So Mark actually believes we're going to hit 1 million. I think that Mark's maybe a little high. I love his visionary tendencies. I'm a big fan of Mark McDonald. But I see the 1 million actually being 2040. 2040. Yeah, that's that. I don't. That is, you heard it here first.
Well, where there's a will, there's a way, right?
Oh shoot! I missed my line.
This has been great, Jim. This is wonderful. So there you are in Kalamazoo, Michigan. Now, where are your clients?
I don't travel anymore. They all come to me. So they're all within. Generally, they're all within an hour, but I got a couple who come 3-4 hours, but they're mostly within an hour. So Kalamazoo, Grand Rapids, Battle Creek, Lansing, some of the big towns around. Yeah.
And you have all the clients you want right now.
I'm doing fine, yes.
Good. What would you say to people who were considering becoming an implementer?
Ooh, good question. I'd say it's more work than you think. You're literally starting your own business. And I think that people miss that somehow. I do not know how. And that it's a blast. If you're meant to do this, it's so rewarding. You'll absolutely love it.
And I think that's something we have to remember, that we're not out selling. We're out discovering.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Discovering companies where the CEO of an entrepreneurial leader feels like his head is going to explode. Mm. We can tell him, you don't have to. It doesn't have to be that way.
Oh yeah.
And likewise, when we look at potential EOS implementers, we're not trying to sell them. We're trying to discover, is this what you're called to be?
Right, and then make sure they're the right fit. I mean, so we're getting much more picky about the people coming in, which is great. I don't know if I would have gotten in back in the day. But don't tell anybody, Will.
Right. We have some who I heard were who fell off the boat initially and then climbed back on.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Renee Bohr was one of those. Yeah, he fell off.
I wasn't going to say that. But
yeah, Renee wouldn't mind. He fell off, and then we helped him. He was helped back on. So
that's wonderful. It's a great community. That's all I can say.
Yeah.
It's a great community, and what I get excited about is helping business leaders to recognize, yes, you are seeing great changes in your life and in your business's life, but you're also part of a powerful movement that is literally going to change the way that businesses run in this world and the way that employees work.
Yeah. Well, yeah. From what I see, I don't know how it couldn't. So that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, this has been great, Jim. I really enjoyed it. Is there anything that you would like to leave with our listeners?
So much. This get intentional about the EOS life for your people and yourself. But first, this is very similar to the airplane. You got to put your oxygen on mask first. And so if you don't show that you're living the EOS life and you can be emulated, get that oxygen mask on you and then help out your brethren.
Wonderful. Thanks so much, Jim. And this is just one more example of how where there's a will, there's a way, and we can change the way that businesses run. We can change the context of business so that every employee has the opportunity and the encouragement and the support to begin living that great ideal life.